So when you discuss energy stewardship, because this is the multidimensional and the energy stewardship are very, very near and dear to me. All of them are beautiful. But in my world, those two are so interlinked. Do you mind sharing maybe those two?
Well, all right. So multidimensional knowing, this was really and is so potent because we have done a great job all these years of the masculine ascendant pattern, the yang focus for 5,000 years. We've developed a logical analysis, a rational mind, all of which is super important. We absolutely need those capacities. But that's one way of looking and one way of taking in information. Of course, it's not the whole picture. So then you also have the imaginal, and that we could call that, let's say, accessing through the right brain. But how do you start to imagine, see things in the future, get that creative knowing coming, streaming in, and then cultivating the heart's intelligence? Now, fortunately, that's something there's more attention spent on now, emotional intelligence. And we have a lot of great authors to thank for that, for doing that work, the neuroscience of that. But the way that you are always taking things in through the heart and being able to filter that information, know what the information is saying to you. Then there's the body, somatic intelligence. What sensations are you getting? What are you knowing in the moment, purely from the vessel of your body? And then there's a spiritual intelligence. So there are all these ways you might work with the cycles, for example, of the moon, which I do, and was a very powerful thing for me throughout my life, actually, and certainly in the years after the trauma. Ways of knowing that when you're plugging into other cycles that are happening in the cosmos and in the natural world. So that would be multidimensional knowing. It's so rich. But like any capacity, it has to be developed. I mean, you don't get to be a really good, logical, rational person able to analyze things without some building of that capacity because it's valued. We just haven't valued adequately all of these other capacities. And again, I'll just say, the reason multidimensional knowing is coming online now is because we 100% need that complexity for dealing with the issues in our lives and in our businesses and in our communities. So it's a beautiful thing. And for me, it was essential because there were so many complex decisions I had to make. And this is one of the key ones that I'll just use a personal example, was right in the beginning where I had to decide whether I was listed in the will as the executor, of course. But the question I was in, once I began to see it's like the Wizard of Oz, you went behind the curtains and I saw what was actually going on in David's business. Then the question I was in with a good friend of mine who is a forensic accountant, as we looked at his business and tried to figure out what had been happening, was, is there any advantage to should I just literally walk away from our estate, and which was a multi-million-dollar property, and everything else that was a part of this, would that be the best thing for me to do? Or would I try to fight for the main asset, which was the property itself, to sell it myself, not have the bank take it, so that there would be some resources available for some of the people from whom he had borrowed money in his close-in family circuit and friends who were my friends, who were dear people to me, and bring a kind of, I want to say, stability to the pattern that was like a big vortex, wanted to take everything down. And I had to use every way of knowing that I had. I did, as much as I could in analysis. In trauma, your prefrontal cortex is not that functional. So I had a lot of people helping me figure things out. Then I was watching the signs and the signals and having conversations with people and feeling what I felt in my heart. And because I knew it was going to be an enormous risk whichever way I went, but it was a decision for which the consequences were huge for me and for many. And I wasn't going to do it out of a heroic, I will do this and throw myself under the bus. that was an example for me. I did choose, but you'll read more when you read the book. I did choose to accept that role and walk through the fire. But that was a decision that took my multidimensional knowing. Yeah.